Logical morning, everyone. Welcome to Vidikya Presents the Hindu newspaper analysis. Today's session will have following segments. Segment 1, overview of today's newspaper. Segment 2, must know topics and explanation. Segment 3, quiz time with 5 important questions. Starting with the overview of the newspaper. The first topic important in today's newspaper is Restore Peace. High Court says in hijab case. Delhi government asks Center for 11 crore from Nirbhaya Fund. Local job laws that raise constitutional questions. An MSP scheme to transform Indian agriculture. Frozen by uncertainty. Is the institution of governor subverting federal structure? Restore peace. Hijab. High Court says in hijab case. SC says too early to intervene into Karnataka hijab controversy. Indo-Pacific region will shape the century, says Blinken. RBI retains status quo to spur growth. And cryptos are a threat to financial stability, Shashikant Das. This we have discussed yesterday only. So these are the important topics from today's newspaper. Important topics for discussion. First, an MSP scheme to transform Indian agriculture. Second, local job laws that raise constitutional question. Third, frozen by uncertainty. Fourth, Indo-Pacific region will shape the century, says Blinken. And topics for self-reading. First, SC says too early to intervene in Karnataka hijab controversy. Second, restore peace, High Court says in hijab case. And third is the institution of governors subverting federal structure. So this is the article, an MSP scheme to transform Indian agriculture. In this article, we will be discussing what is MSP, how many crops are there in MSP, which committee recommends MSP, which committee announces MSP, and then the three linked aspects of MSP, that is food security, income stability, and indebtedness of farmer. So what is MSP? MSP is minimum support price, and MSPs are the prices at which the government procures certain crops from farmer to ensure them against any sharp price in fall. So before the sowing season, the government declares the MSP for a particular crop, and when the crop is harvested, then the government purchases the crop at the price declared before the showing of crop. And number of crops under MSP are 23. You do not have to remember the names of the crop. And then the committee which recommends MSP price is CACP, that Commission for Agriculture Cost and Prices. And the committee that declares MSP is CCEA, Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs. So in this topic, it is discussed that MSP could serve in principle three purposes. First, price stabilization in the food grain market. Second, income support to farmer, and also as a mechanism for coping with indebtedness of farmer. So first we'll discuss the price stabilization policy. So initially the government came up with Essential Commodities Act 1955, through which government regulated the import, production, supply of commodities which the government believed or thought that these are the essential commodities for the public, and in case of sudden rise in price or any uncertain events, the government declares those crop under the MSPs and the price can be regulated. And then there is another mechanism, that is buffer stock policy for market intervention. So in this, what happens, the government purchases the crop from the farmer at MSP and then keep it in their godown, and in case of any price stability in the market, the government release the crop in the market to maintain the price stability, and then storing the procured surplus for sale through public distribution. So the government that procures the crop from the market, from the farmers at MSP, stores the surplus for sale, stores the surplus through, and then this surplus is distributed to the poor people through PDS at subsidized rates. So now there is also one mechanism that government purchases the crop in two ways, that it purchases the crop directly from farmers, that okay, 1600 rupees per quintal is the price per beet. I will pay you 1600, you give me the crop. And the other way through which government purchases, let's say government declares MSP at 1600, but the market price is 1400. So government says you sell your crop to the in the market at 1400 and we will pay you extra 200 per quintal. So this is another way of purchasing crop. So this method is known as paying the difference between procurement price and market price. Now, these induce farmer to shift to high yielding varieties cropping pattern during the green revolution while ensuring food security for citizens. So what happened? So when government declares that we will provide MSP for these crops, and because of assured income by the government, the farmers have shifted to these crops like wheat, rice, and sugarcane, and like mostly, so that farmers can produce these crop and can sell these crop to the government, and they have assured income. So that is why it changed the whole scenario of India's food security. We will discuss later. Then there is a partial coverage. So impacted the cropping pattern. What do you mean by partial coverage? As I've told you that there are 23 crops under MSP. However, the purchase of all the crops are not equivalent, and the crops which are mostly purchased under MSP regime are wheat, rice, and sugarcane. And because the government is procuring only mostly these three crops, so all those farmers are growing only these three crops, because farmers know that even if they produce more, the government is there to buy. Even if the price falls, then also the government is there to buy the crop. Therefore, they do not have any income uncertainty. So because of this, what happened? This impacted the cropping pattern. So impacted the cropping pattern means in the regions where the sowing or growing cultivating of rice is not feasible, because uh, rice is a high intensive irrigation crop which requires a lot of irrigation and water. Therefore, what the farmers does, they utilize the groundwater to a very high extent to cultivate rice crop and sugarcane or wheat. Why farmers are doing this? Farmers are doing this because they believe that government will purchase their crop at MSP price, so they do not have to worry. So this impacted the cropping pattern. So if, let's say, one region is good for sowing those crop which are not water intensive, but these crops are not being bought by government. So instead of cultivating uh, those less water intensive crops in that region, what farmers are doing, they are producing high intensive water crop, because they know they will get the money from the government under the MSP regime. But if they will grow another crop, they won't get the money under the MSP regime. So that is why this impacted the cropping pattern. As a result, this partial MSP coverage skewed the cropping pattern against several coarse grains and millets, particularly in rain-fed area. Now, food security and income security. Coverage of all 23 crops under MSP is a way of improving food security and income support to poorest farmer in rain-fed region. So through the MSP, what happens is that it is also a way of food security, that if government says that we will purchase your crop, then the farmer will produce those crops. However, because of the partial coverage, the production is mostly restricted to rice, wheat, and sugarcane. But if government goes for equal purchase, that whatever you will produce out of 23 crops, we will produce that. We will purchase that from you. If that happens, then all 23 varieties of crop will be produced according to the region, according to the suitability of region. And this way, food security will be ensured, because different crops are being grown, and these different crops have different nutritional value. What is food security? Food security means the availability of food, accessibility of food, and the affordability of food. Along with these three, there's also in food security, we also include nutritional security. So for nutritional security, we need to diversify the cropping pattern. So if government is only restricted to buying wheat, sugarcane, and rice, then this will not ensure nutritional security. Therefore, government has to procure all 23 crops so that crop can be diversified, and in food security, nutritional security can also be ensured, and income support to poorest farmers in rain fed regions. So farmers in those regions where they do not have high income, where they do not have the pumps and all to irrigate their fields to grow water intensive crop, so if government produces other crops or purchases other crops under MSP, then these farmers will produce those crops which are not water intensive, and those crops will be purchased by the government. So this will ensure the income to the poorest farmer also in the rain-fed region. Now, economic cost of MSP. So economic cost is procurement cost by government, the transportation cost and made ready for consumption, the storage cost, the distribution cost, and the subsidy which the government gives to the poorest people under PDS scheme, and the administration cost. So in the article, it has been suggested MSP should be given in a band. So each crop within a band of maximum and minimum price depending on harvest condition. So if the harvest condition is good, then the price should be low, and if the harvest condition is bad, then the higher price should be announced by government. So this is the way of introducing MSP as a band, and the price of some selected coarse grain can be fixed at upper end of its band to encourage their production in rain-fed area. So as I mentioned, as I've told you, the government mainly procures three crops: wheat, rice, sugarcane. So this article suggests that in case of coarse grain, the government can declare a fixed upper end price of that crop, so that that crop can be promoted and farmer can produce that crop more. For example, ragi, millet, bajra. So these crop can be promoted by the government by fixing the upper price limit of that crop. Now, wide coverage of MSP through income support to farmers would generate massive positive economic externalities through raising industrial demand, especially for unorganized sector. So what does this mean is that when the government purchases crop from farmer, so they will get income. So they will get income. When they will have more income in their hand, they will buy different product, which will generate a massive positive economic externality. So like, suppose if government farmers sows a crop and sells it to government, he gets a price. So farmer can, with that price, farmer can buy small equipments, bike and other electronic equipments for their house. So with income security, the positive economic externality will also be generated, and which will be linked to another sector. And when that sector will grow, this sector will also be linked to different sectors. So in that way, a chain will be created and the economic growth can be spurred. The article also talks about a real breakthrough in the recurring problem of agriculture debt can be made by the linking of selling of grains under MSP to provision of bank credit, particularly for small crop farmers. The farmer can get a certificate selling grains at MSP, which would be credit points proportional to the amount sold. This will entitle them to bank loan as their right and calibrate the fluctuations between good and bad harvest years by storing the certificate for later use. So in India, more than 80% farmers are small and marginal farmers. So they always face this problem of debt, and the data also showed that most of the farmers commit suicide because of the indebtedness. So in order to address that issue, what this article suggests is that when the farmer sells the crop at MSP, at the same time government can issue a certificate providing some credit on that certificate, and that certificate can be used for the purpose of taking loan. So this will reduce the dependence of farmer on the informal money lending, and it will help farmer that in case of bad season, the farmer can use this certificate for getting loan from the bank. Also with that the farmer will not have to depend on loan from informal money lending sector. At the same time, the issue of bad loan in the bank can also be addressed. So this is one thing that the article discusses. Article also says the effective MSP scheme could be implemented would depend largely on decentralizing the implementing agencies under the constitutionally mandated supervision of panchayat. So till now, the crop procurement under MSP is done by central government. So this article talks about that there should be decentralized mechanism, the procurement mechanism, the distribution, the selling, and all can be given to state and then can be given to local government. So this talks about decentralization, that government should not involve itself in the procurement because the cost incurred by the central government is too high. So we need to go for democratic decentralization where the functions can be given to more functions can be given to state government and to local government and panchayati raj for procurement, distribution and storage. So in this topic, for CLAT examination perspective, you have to remember that what is MSP, the number of crops in MSP, the committee which recommends the MSP, and the committee which announces the MSP. So these are the 4 important points that you need to remember. Now the second topic, that local job laws that raise constitutional question. So in this topic, we will be discussing about that this topic is in news because Haryana government last year passed a law which mandated 75 reservation in jobs in private sector. So on that background, another state also enacted new legislation that they, such as Andhra Pradesh also enacted such legislation. Jharkhand also enacted such similar legislation to reserve the jobs in the private sector. So let's see what this article says. So Haryana State Employment of Local Candidates Act, or the Haryana Act, that reserves 75% of jobs in the private sector in the state for local resident. However, the government may also exempt certain industries by notification. So this is simple. Other states such as Andhra Pradesh and Jharkhand have passed similar bills. The Andhra Pradesh legislation has been challenged in the Andhra Pradesh High Court. Now there are issues with such law. So these acts raise several constitutional questions. There are at least 3 important constitutional questions that arise from this act. Number 1, Article 19(1)(g) of the Constitution of India. So this article guarantees freedom to carry out any occupation, trade, or business. However, there may be reasonable restrictions in the interest of general public, and in particular related to specifying any professional or technical qualifications or to reserve a sector for government monopoly. So Article 19(1)(g) guarantees freedom to citizen to carry out any occupation, trade, or business throughout the country, provided there are certain reasonable, however, government can impose certain reasonable restriction. So this act, by requiring private business to reserve 75% of lower end jobs for locals, encroaches upon their right to carry out an occupation. So if Haryana government enacts such law, the person from UP, Bihar cannot go and work in Haryana because they do not have the job opportunity, because there is a reservation of 75% in the private sector. That is why this article says it is an encroachment upon their right to carry out any occupation, and therefore it is a violation of Article 19(1)(g). Now, in the year 2005, Supreme Court in PA Inamdar case, it said that reservation cannot be mandated on educational institutions that do not receive financial aid from the state, as that would affect the freedom of occupation. So in 2005, the constitution was following this case. The government amended the constitution to allow reservation in private educational institution for socially and educationally backward classes and scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. Note that this amendment applies to admission in private educational institution and not to jobs in the private sector. So initially, the Supreme Court says that the reservation cannot be mandated in private educational institutions, that do not receive financial aid. To overcome this judgment of Supreme Court, the government amended the constitution and allowed reservation in the private educational institution for SEBCs, that is social and educationally backward class, and SCs and ST. But this amendment applies to admission in private sector institution and not to jobs. So this is only limited to private educational institution and not to jobs in the private sector, as in the case of Haryana's new legislation. Now, second challenge, the provision of reservation by virtue of domicile or residence may be unconstitutional. So let's see Article 16 of the Constitution. Article 16 of the Constitution specifically provides for equality of opportunity for all citizens in public and employment. It prohibits discrimination on several grounds, including place of birth and residence. So Article 16 talks about equality of opportunity for all citizens in public employment. So here Article 16 is restricted to public employment and not to private employment. It prohibits discrimination on several grounds, including place of birth and residence. So this Article 16 also talks about that discrimination cannot be made on grounds such as place of birth and residence. But the Haryana legislation discriminates the person from another state because of his place of birth and residence. However, it permits parliament to make law that requires resident within a state for appointment to a public office. However, the Article 16 says that equality of opportunity must be ensured for all citizens in public employment, and it prohibits discrimination on several grounds, including place of birth and residence. In Article 16 only, the Article 16 says that Parliament can make a law that can require residence within a state for appointment to public office. So firstly, you need to understand that Article 16 prohibits discrimination on base of place of birth and residence. However, Parliament can make a law that requires residence within a state for appointment to public office. So Parliament can make reservation on the basis of place of residence. However, only Parliament is entitled to do so, not state government. So in this case, Haryana government has enacted the law and not the Parliament. Therefore, it's a violation of Article 16 of Constitution as well. Now, the third issue is whether 75 reservation is permitted. So now for this, we need to see Indira Sahni case of 1992, in which the Supreme Court capped reservation in public services at 50%. So Supreme Court says that for public services like public employment and public educational institutions, the reservation can be limited to 50%. However, it said that there may be extraordinary situations which may need a relaxation in this rule. It is also specified that in doing so, extreme caution is to be exercised and a special case to be made out. So there is a limit of 50% reservation. However, in case of certain extraordinary situations, for example, tribals, for other like marginalized people, the reservation can be extended. However, the Supreme Court cautioned that in doing so, extreme caution is to be exercised and a special case must be made out. So we have, when the matter goes to Supreme Court and Supreme Court will decide, then we'll see that this legislation is based on, like this legislation is based on the basis of a special case, whether a special case has been made out to implement 75% reservation and to breach the upper ceiling of 50%. So this is yet to be seen. And so in this case, the state government has the extra responsibility to ensure that if they are providing reservation more than 50%, so they need to make out a special case that this is why the breaking of 50% limit is warranted. So this we will see when the Supreme Court gives the judgment. Now there are other issues with this, like issue of equality. So it breaches the notion of equality of all citizens of India. This restriction may also indirectly affect the right to reside across India, as finding employment becomes difficult. So nowadays, people from Bihar, UP, Rajasthan goes to Mumbai, Haryana, Delhi for Karnataka for job. But when there is a reservation in private sector, so they cannot find employment in other states. So therefore, it will hamper their movement to another state, because it will be very difficult for finding employment, and therefore it will be very difficult for them to reside in that state. So also, if more states follow similar policies, it would be difficult for citizens to migrate from their state to other state to find work. Now, another challenge is that other than potentially increasing cost for companies, there may, because cost for companies will increase, because if Haryana government has mandated that the private jobs you can take people from Haryana, so there is only limited pool that the company can hire. But if people from Haryana, UP, Bihar are also coming, so the pool increases for the private company, and therefore they can pay less, because the number of job seekers are more. But when number of job seekers are less, so they do not have the choice to pay less. So in this way, it will potentially increase cost for companies. Also, there may also be an increase in income inequality across states, as citizens of poor state with fewer job opportunities are trapped within their state. So in states like Haryana, Delhi, Maharashtra, Karnataka, there are more job opportunities. But these job opportunities, if are restricted to the citizens of that state, people of that state, then people from the poorer states like UP, Bihar cannot go and work there. That therefore it will increase the income inequality of the people, and the state like UP, Bihar can also not develop much, because there is less job opportunities and people do not have much income to spend. So there may also be serious consequences to the idea of India as a nation. Can people across states imagine themselves as citizens of one nation if they cannot freely freely work and settle down across the nation. This is also an issue. So in this article, you have to remember the laws made by Haryana government, that similar laws are made by Andhra government also and Jharkhand government also. And then you have to remember Article 19(1)(g). And then you have to remember this PA Inamdar case. And you have to remember that in PA Inamdar case, government said that reservation cannot be mandated in private educational institution. Then you have to remember that amendment which allowed reservation in private educational institution, but not in private sector job. And another thing that you need to remember is Article 16 of the Constitution, under which only Parliament can make law that can prescribe residence within a state for appointment. And then you have to remember Indira Sani case, which talks about 50% upper ceiling for reservation. So these points are important for your CLAT examination perspective. So you need to remember these points. Now the next article is frozen by uncertainty. It is related to RBI and the Monetary Policy Committee and its action on inflation rate. So the Monetary Policy Committee decision to leave interest rates unchanged and retain its accommodative policy stance. So recently, yesterday only our Monetary Policy Committee decided not to change the interest rate and leave as it is. So we need to know, for exam purpose, we need to know what is MPC, Monetary Policy Committee. So RBI Act was enacted in 1934 and it was amended by Finance Act 2016 to constitute Monetary Policy Committee, which will bring more transparency and accountability in fixing India's monetary policy. Another objective of Monetary Policy Committee is to ensure economic growth as well as to maintain the inflation rate. Now, the Monetary Policy Committee is responsible for fixing the benchmarks interest rate in India. The committee comprises 6 members. This is the important point. First point which is important is when MPC was constituted, that is in year 2016, and how many members are there. You need to remember the number of members. There are 6 members, 3 officials of RBI and 3 external members nominated by Government of India. So you need to remember that Monetary Policy Committee was enacted in 2006 by amendment, and then there are 6 members. 3 members are from within RBI and 3 members to be nominated by Government of India. And also the current mandate of the committee is to maintain 4% annual inflation with an upper tolerance of 6% and lower tolerance of 2%. So the Monetary Policy Committee is mandated that the inflation rate remains between 2% and 6%. It should not breach between 6% and 2%. And in case if it breaches, the Monetary Policy Committee is required to explain the reasons for such breach and what actions it has taken to ensure that the inflation remains between 2% and 6%. So why inflation rate matters, why interest rate matters. So on the one hand, the article says on one hand, why the Monetary Policy Committee decided to leave the interest rate unchanged. Article says on one hand, both the global and domestic economy have suffered a loss of momentum in the wake of Omicron wave, and prognosticating prospects for the recovery has become even more risky in the face of uncertainty shrouding the pandemic. So wave after waves are coming. So there is also lack of confidence of people in the market, and the economy is not growing as it was expected to grow because of wave 1, wave 2, and now we are witnessing wave 3 in many countries. In India also, private consumption, which is the mainstay of domestic demand, shows little signs of regaining traction. The private consumption in India is also reduced because people are worried that people have lost their jobs, people have lost their income, their salaries has been reduced. So they are worrying, they are not spending on the products or on services which are not essential for them right now. So this has reduced the private expenditure. Add to the mix that persistent increase in international commodity price, a surge in volatility in international financial market, and global supply bottleneck, and the risk to outlook are further heightened. So when it comes to international commodity price, it also affects the domestic economy. For example, there is a recent drone attack in UAE by Yemen on the oil factory, and last year it was on Saudi Arabia Aramco factory. So because of this, there is a price volatility in crude oil, and India is a major importer of crude oil. So when there is an attack in the oil supplies and there is a break in the oil supply, so the prices of crude oil increases, and because of that the prices of petrol and diesel also increases in India, which also restricts the private consumption and private expenditure. So that is why the Monetary Policy Committee decided to leave the interest rate unchanged. Now, how interest rate affects the economy? So when the interest rate is kept low, there will be more demand for loan for the investment and expenditure purpose, and vice versa. So when the interest rate is low, so people will go, they will take loan, they will invest more in the any sector, for example building house, constructing factory, or anything. But when the interest rate is high, the investor hesitates to take the loan because interest rate is too high. However, the MPC did not reduce the rate because it is not always certain. However, you need to remember that it is not always certain that when interest rate is low, then more investment will take place, because even if currently the interest rate decreases, more investment is not possible, is not necessary, because what happens, there is a economic shock and the confidence in people is very low. Even if you give them loan at very low interest rate, the people are not willing to invest because they believe that the economy is not growing and the people do not have enough income to buy their product. So because of this, during pandemic, the government is not willing too much to reduce the interest rates because it does not have the economic effects which the Monetary Policy Committee is expecting. Now the last article, Indo-Pacific region will shape the century. So in yesterday's session, we discussed about Quad and Indo-Pacific region. So this article is in news because of the meeting of ministers of Quad members. And the Quad members are, you need to remember the Quad members, there are 4 Quad members: Australia, India, USA, and Japan. Then you need to remember Malabar exercise, which started in the year 1992 and Australia joined in 2021. Malabar exercise is a naval exercise between Australia, India, USA, and Japan. So why Indo-Pacific region is important? Indo-Pacific region is the fastest growing region in the world. And now we need to know what is Indo-Pacific region. So Indo-Pacific region is Indian Ocean region plus Central Pacific Ocean region. So this whole region is known as Indo-Pacific region. So the article says the Indo-Pacific is the fastest growing region in the world, accounting for 2/3 of global economic growth over the past 5 years and home to half the world's population. Mr. Blinken said like-minded countries were standing up for shared values rather than against China, as it is believed that these countries are coming together to counter the rise of China. However, Blinken said it is not about countering China. It is because these countries are coming together because of their shared values, such as democracy and following the international law. So because of these like-minded countries are coming together. And this is not about standing against anyone in particular. It is about standing up for rule-based order. So Indo-Pacific region in news because there is a threat that countries like China is not following rule-based order. That's why the European countries are also worried, because this is a major economic region and half of the world population lives here and 2/3 of global economic comes from this region. In Indo-Pacific region, India becomes an important player because India becomes a focal point for the European nation, for Australia, for Japan. That's why these countries are coordinating with India through various institutions like Quad, Middle East Quad, and supply chain resilient initiatives. So in this topic, you need to remember what is Quad, members of Quad, Malabar exercise, and what is Indo-Pacific region. So that's all. So it's time for G quiz. Question number 1, how many crops are included in MSP? Your options are 18, 23, 21, and 20. And the correct answer is option B, that is 23. Question number 2, which of the following recommends MSP? Your options are central government, Commission for Agriculture Cost and Prices. Option C, Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs. Option D, respective state government. The correct answer is option B. Question number 3, how many RBI members are present in Monetary Policy Committee? Your options are 2, 3, 6, 4. And the correct answer is option B, that is 3. 3 members are from RBI and 3 members are of state government. Not state government, but 3 members are nominated by Government of India. So total 6 members, 3 members from RBI and 3 nominated members by Government of India. Question 4, which of the following can make law providing reservation based on place of birth and residence? Your options are state government, central government, both, and none of the above. And the answer is central government. So as we discussed in Article 16, that it prohibits discrimination on the basis of place of birth and residence. However, this article empowers or entitles the parliament to make law that can prescribe that for a particular post, the place of birth and resident can be considered for the appointment. Now the last question, which of the following is true with respect to inflation rate by Monetary Policy Committee? A 4%, B 2%, C 6%, D 2%, and 4%, 6%, between 2% and 6%. And the correct answer is between 2% and 6%. So we discussed that Monetary Policy Committee is required to ensure that the inflation rate remains between 2% and 6%. It talks about that there is an upper limit of 4. So the limit of inflation rate is 4 plus minus 2. So it can go up to 6% and it can come down to 2%. And if this 2 and 6 target is breached, the Monetary Policy Committee is required to take actions and tell about this to the Government of India. So this is today's quiz based on the today's discussion. And if you have any doubt, you can post in the comment box. Stay logical with Vidhya, your best pal in CLAT preps. Thank you.